It's that time of the week again where we react to some of the biggest January transfer rumours over the last 7 days. I've got the categories in front of me. I've got 22 names submitted by you guys at home. Let's get into it. We're starting with Taiwo Awoniyi to West Ham United, who are of course still in the hunt for a striker, with the news that Nicholas Füllkrug is going to be out for over 3 months with a hamstring injury. We spoke about Evan Ferguson potentially going to the Hammers recently, but it feels like that deal is on the back burner now with his injury problems and a bit of reluctance from Brighton to do the deal. We've also got Rodrigo Muniz being linked to the club, but let's start with Taiwo Awoniyi, who is struggling for game time at Forest right now. It's not coming, partly down to the fact that Chris Wood is one of the best strikers in the league, to be honest with you. And ever since that debut season at Forest, where he put up, 10 goals in 17 starts, looked really dangerous physically, I think he's struggled to make an impact. When he's had chances, he's picked up injuries at poor times. His first touch isn't quite as good as Chris Wood with back to play, so he doesn't have the ability to bring these players into counter-attacks in the same way. I think this would probably constitute a good move if the deal was structured correctly. If it was a loan with an option to buy, you could see what you're going to get over the next 6 months from him, because his form recently hasn't shown enough to warrant a large fee, and at 27 years old, it doesn't feel like this is one for the future. West Ham's striker signings in recent years have been on the old side. If Awoniyi does leave Forest, it could open the door for a bid for Yohan Wissa. This has been reported in the Telegraph. Nottingham Forest, of course, had an offer in the summer of about £25 million rejected for him. They're back in. And it's been an incredibly impressive season for him, hasn't it? 11 goals in just 17 starts. I think he put up 12 last season, so he's already closing in on that number. He's become Brentford's record ever Premier League goal scorer. His XG, his non-penalty expected goals, really, really impressive. Over that sort of 0.5 per 90. His shots aren't particularly on the high side, but that's because how Brentford want to play. And I think what he offers Forest is the ability to play in 2 or 3 different roles. He could play as a number 9, potentially in the transitional side. He could play as a wide man to offer some cover to the likes of Elanga and Hudson-Odoi. Multifaceted, Premier League experience, contracts up in 2026. If Forest can get this deal done, for me, it's a wow. Let's talk about Darwin Nunez. Now, it depends who you believe here about this bid, but reportedly, some people are saying that Liverpool have knocked back a £75 million offer from Saudi Arabia for Darwin Nunez. Do I believe that? I'm not sure. The case of Darwin Nunez is quite interesting. I personally think he was a lot better suited to a Jurgen Klopp system than an Arne Slot system, which feels a little bit more structured. I think Darwin works better in a chaotic environment, and that's kind of proven out in the numbers, to be honest with you. It's actually 19 Premier League goal involvements for him last season. His underlying numbers were great. He works really hard off the ball, but a consistent XG underperformer to a really quite large level. He misses some extremely high profile chances, and I think Slot has favoured people that are more clinical, that are more structured this season. And that's really borne out in only 7 starts this campaign. I think he's much more likely to utilise Diogo Jota now he's back from injury as well, so that number for me isn't going to jump a great deal across the second half of the season. His goal output hasn't been there. But to be honest with you, for me, this is a summer move. I would be really surprised to see Michael Edwards or anybody at FSG, Arne Slot, sanction the sale of a player like Darwin Nunez, who can contribute in the midst of a monumental title charge. They are fully on for a Premier League title. They've won 1 Premier League title. And by selling a player like Darwin Nunez, you are only weakening yourself. Surely the offers are going to be there in the summer again. Okay, Kvaradona is on the verge of joining PSG. By the time you watch this, he might well have joined officially PSG. €70 million plus add-ons. On the surface of it, yeah, like it's a wow, isn't it? You think, wow, an amazing player. He is so highly talented. His ball carrying ability, some of the best dribble numbers in Europe. But for me, PSG, like, I almost genuinely want to put in yikes. I hate this move. I hate nearly everything about this move. Like, I'm going to leave it up there in good move. Fine. I can see people at home will be shouting at me. I hate it though. And I'll tell you why I hate it. And that is the composition of PSG's squad. Kvaradona joins in a position where Bradley Barcola is, one of the best French talents we've seen in a number of years. He's put up 10 goals this season, occupying that left-hand side, wants to drift inside. He is a superstar in the making. On the right-hand side, where Kvaradona doesn't play anyway, Ousmane Dembele, similarly exceptional numbers this campaign. Yes, he can be inconsistent, but the output's been good under Enrique. He's on massive wages, and he's French as well. Desiree Doué joined in the summer, 50 mil. Where's he going to play? Lee Kang-in has put up 9 goal involvements, can play on that right-hand side. Where's Kvara going to play? Is this a Kolo Muani replacement who was getting no minutes anyway? Is he going to operate as a false 9 where Asensio has kind of operated at times? What does this mean for Gonzalo Ramos? From a squad building perspective, I don't get it. From Kvaradona's own perspective, I don't get it. PSG themselves, obviously a massive club, but the eyeballs on Ligue 1, some of their performances in the Champions League, I'm surprised he's made this move, man. And I don't totally get it. Even though I'm going to leave it in good mood because he's an amazing player and fine, they can stockpile if they want, but I just don't totally get it. Could the replacement for him be Alejandro Garnacho? These rumours have been bubbling away over the last 24 hours that Napoli are ready to submit a €70 million bid for him. And I think from Napoli's perspective, maybe even Ghana's perspective, this would be a good move. From Man United's perspective, I think this would be a poor sale. I do not want to see Manchester United sell Alejandro Garnacho, even at €70 million. He's a player we must be keeping. If you haven't already watched my defense of Alejandro Garnacho video, please do go and watch it, because I really think there is a highly talented player there. He is changing his game quite dramatically from what I've seen under Ruben Amorim. We've heard Ruben Amorim speak about his need to play inside more. His goal and assist output has always been there. Alejandro Garnacho, for his age, is exceptional. You know, across his last 18 90-minute periods in the Premier League, he's put up 13 goal involvements. Those numbers are absolutely fine for a 20-year-old, especially at a fee like €70 million, which, you know, Omar Marmoush potentially leaving for €70 million. At 20 years old, Omar Marmoush hadn't made a senior professional appearance. At 20 years old, Vinicius Jr. put up 3 goals, 3 assists in La Liga. The growth between 20 and 23 for attacking young wide players is often exponential. That is when they really take off. So for Manchester United to cash in on a player like Garnacho would be really disappointing for me. I want to see him given at least a couple more seasons to grow under a new coach like Ruben Amorim in a new role. Quite excited by him in those 10 spots. His decision making for the goal at Liverpool, passing it back to Ahmad, excellent. His decision making against Arsenal, the cut back to Bruno, excellent. And his off the ball work rate has improved too. I think he is a highly talented player, an academy graduate. United shouldn't be letting this kind of player go, man. Honestly, I don't care about this financial question mark. Garner should be kept. What about Zinchenko going to Borussia Dortmund then? Again, I think this would be a good move for most parties. He's not going to get into this Arsenal side with Calafiori there, despite the fact he's injured. Timber can offer cover at left back, but most importantly, Miles Lewis-Skelly looks an absolute beast. Physically, at 18, he's bossing people in the Premier League already, but it's not just his physicality, it's his on-the-ball ability, it's his composure, his decision-making, his defensive positioning, which is also excellent. I don't really see a home for Zinchenko in that side anymore. And at 28 years old, I'm sure he'll be looking at his 2 starts this season and thinking, maybe there are new opportunities for me. Borussia Dortmund offers an interesting alternative, doesn't it? They've been pretty rotten. Nuri Sahin facing the sack. But Bensebaini in that left-back role has looked okay when he's played there. I've been pretty impressed whenever I've watched him. He can also offer cover at centre-back. The one thing Zinchenko has over a player like Bensebaini, though, is not only can he play at left-back, he could also offer cover in the defensive midfield role, maybe even as a left-sided 8. He's extremely versatile. He can invert and is a little bit better on the ball. Probably not as good defensively, but in transition, he was crucial for Arsenal. When they wanted to go from stage 1 to stage 2, I'm not talking about in-game here, I'm talking about as a club, his ability on the ball made a huge difference. It feels like they're now at phase 6 or whatever, and he's been left behind a little bit, but Dortmund could really use a player of his experience, his calibre on the ball. I think this would be a good move if the fee was right. Let's stick with Dortmund and talk about Carney Chukwuemeka, who could well be making the jump as well. Borussia Dortmund very interested, as they tend to be in a lot of young English talent that has a high ceiling, a Jadon Sancho, a Jude Bellingham. Could Carney Chukwuemeka be the next man to make the jump? Well, it's just 2 Premier League starts this season. It was 2 Premier League starts last season. It was 2 Premier League starts the season before. and he's still only 21 years of age, so certainly he needs to increase his playing time. But when we've seen Carney Chukwuemeka, the best of him in that creative midfield role, his ability to drive past people is really, really excellent. He was certainly one of the most talked about young English players when he joined Chelsea. This feels like it would be a really smart bit of business for Borussia Dortmund's side, who have got, Marcel Sabitzer and Julian Brandt putting up an awful lot of minutes in those sort of attacking midfield roles. Carney can also operate as an 8, versatile, physically strong. I like this one. What about Araujo going to Juventus? This one feels like it's becoming less and less likely by the hour. Maybe at the start of the week, a lot of people would have had this one in a wow move. Now it feels a little bit unrealistic due to the wage problems and the fact that he's about to sign a new contract at Barcelona. Juve certainly have defensive issues. Gatti, Kalulu, but then you've got Bremer with that ACL problem. They need some depth there. They really, really do, because as a defensive unit, they've been very, very solid in Serie A. Some of the best XG against numbers in the league, conceded just 17 goals, an awful lot of draws. It's at the top end of the pitch where they really need to change their fortunes. And Araujo would have been an amazing option. He would have represented the definition of a market opportunity. A loan with an option to buy at 40 million euros for a player of his calibre is amazing, but he does come with drawbacks. Obviously, the biggest being his injury record, which is absolutely stinking. It has been again this season. The hamstring problems across the last 2 campaigns. It's 21 starts in La Liga in both of them. Just not good enough playing time on the pitch. But when he's at his absolute best, I still think he's one of the best 1v1 defenders in Europe, certainly one of the best channel defenders. And Italian football has a way of, if you're an injury-prone player, finding new levels physically from you. And that might have been a good move for Araujo, but right now, as we stand here, it seems unrealistic. Okay, we spoke about Awoniyi going to West Ham. What about Rodrigo Muniz, the Fulham striker who hasn't got an awful lot of game time this season? He's put up 20 appearances, but 15 of them have come from the bench, so it's just 5 starts, 3 goals in that time. He had a really, really strong purple patch last campaign, where I think he got 7 in 7. He won the Premier League Player of the Month. He got 9 goals in total, though, across the entire campaign. So he has proven that he can score goals if he's fed the right chances, but not in a particularly consistent manner. His XG is impressive at about 0.5 per 90, but it is juiced because of a lack of minutes. His shot numbers are very impressive, upwards of 4 per 90. That's a sort of Erling Haaland number that you want to hit. Over 4 is a golden number for a striker, and Rodrigo Muniz is doing that. He's also only 23 years old and is out of contract in 2026, although Fulham do have an optional extra year. And the reports suggest that this would be a loan with an obligation to buy at around £30 million. For me, that would be a pretty good move. A risk worth taking for a West Ham side that quite frankly need a striker. Randall Kolo Muani is on the verge of joining Juventus. This is another move that might well have happened by the time you watch this video. They're certainly in need of goals, Juventus. They've scored, I think, 16 goals less than Inter Milan this season in Serie A. Dusan Vlahovic has scored 2 league goals since November the 5th. Nowhere near good enough, and behind him the likes of Tim Weah is on 4, Yildiz on 4, then we're down to defenders. So the goal scoring output hasn't been good enough under Thiago Motta. It feels like the move for Joshua Zirkzee is going to be off the table. He definitely wants to stay at Manchester United and fight for his future. And again, a loan, a dry loan, PSG covering all of his wages. There's just no downside when the club is covering all of his wages. There's no fee. This is a big upside, particularly for the player who's going to get an awful lot of game time, you'd think, in that Juventus system under Thiago Motta. Tosin Adarabioyo to Brighton is a move that cropped up this week. Not sure about this one, to be honest with you. I think he's a good player, Tosin, and he proved that at Fulham. There's a reason Chelsea picked him up on a free transfer, but he struggled for game time under Maresca. And I look at that Brighton backline, I think of Lewis Dunk and Van Hecke being pretty immovable. These guys start most weeks. They are 2 key components to that Herzler system. So where would the minutes come from Tosin, and what would the fee look like, importantly? Because there's no way they're going to do business if it's a loan move or anything like that, given they've had to recall Chalobah because of defensive injuries. I think from a lot of perspectives, I don't get this one. Could Kyle Walker go to AC Milan? It's a really difficult one, this, isn't it? I have to say it was a big surprise that Man City have been, and the player have been so open about his sudden desire to leave mid-season. I thought it was a surprise the other day when he came on and turned down the captain's armband. But having said that, he's been really poor. All of his underlying numbers are off a cliff. Defensively, he hasn't looked like the player Kyle Walker once was. Positionally, that's happened for a few years now, but now the pace seems to have gone as well. It would be a real surprise, though, for me to see him go to AC Milan, given that they bought Emerson Royale in the summer and they have that non-EU quota limit, which means they can only sign one of him or Marcus Rashford. Do you know what? I'm actually going to say it would be a fine move. I don't think it would be amazing, but for him to go live in Milan, play still in one of the European giants, probably extend his career by a few years, Milan get an experienced defender, might not need to rely on his pace because it's not such a transitional league as the Premier League. The only worry for me would be is who do you pick, him or Rashford? What about Christopher Nkunku, who remains one of Chelsea's most deadly finishers, in my opinion? I interviewed Cole Palmer this week and he was talking about how good he is in the box, in front of goal. It's exceptional. His XG is amazing. His shot conversion rate is sensational. He's scored a lot of goals across all competitions for Chelsea this season, but he's not getting any Premier League games. Just 3 starts this season in the league, and he's now being linked with a €70 million move to Bayern Munich. My issue here is he goes from a club where he's not a starter to a club where I don't think he's a starter either. Maybe I'm being extremely harsh there, but where does Nkunku start for Bayern Munich? He's not going to play in the number 9 over Harry Kane. I don't see him playing in that second striker number 10 role where he kind of wants to operate because of Jamal Musiala. He's not going to play off the right over Michael Olise. Does that mean he's shoved left wing where we've heard endless stuff that Nkunku can't play on the left, doesn't want to play on the left, which is why he hasn't played there at Chelsea, why they've bought in players like Pedro Neto, Jadon Sancho. Again, it would probably be a good move because he will score goals. He's got a history of scoring goals in the Bundesliga. He was amazing for Leipzig, and maybe company has a plan to utilise him playing off of Harry Kane somehow, rotating with Harry Kane. I don't know. Chelsea fans and Bayern fans, please do let me know how you see Nkunku fitting into that Bayern Munich side. Because when I've watched them this season, they don't really operate with that second striker. Omar Marmoush is about to join Manchester City. The fee is getting up there though, isn't it? It's getting up towards €70 million now. Let's say it's going to be a good move. His output this season has been categorically amazing. He's going at more than a goal involvement per 90 in the Bundesliga. He can play in a variety of different roles. But as I've said in my past videos, don't think it's the most natural fit from Frankfurt. He plays up front with Ekitike, plays very close with him, almost as a shadow striker. Is he going to do that with Erling Haaland? And if he does, what does that mean for other players in that Manchester City attack, like a Jack Grealish, a Phil Foden, Savinho, Doku, Oscar Bob, who's about to come back? Casemiro going to Saudi Arabia. This one is continuing to bubble away under the surface. Manchester United, I'm sure, will want a fee for him. Probably a good move from all parties, isn't it, if they can get this one done, given he isn't getting any minutes. I think it was pretty telling that he didn't get any minutes at the weekend and Toby Collier was brought on ahead of him where Manchester United were trying to see out a game and take it to penalties. They opted for the younger player in Toby Collier. That spoke volumes. I think you might well see Casemiro in Saudi by the end of this window. Zubimendi is a summer spot. This move just took everyone by surprise, didn't it? Really blew a lot of people away. The fact that Arsenal had managed to convince a player that had rejected Manchester City, Liverpool, Barcelona, Real Madrid, and he opted to come to the Premier League and has selected Arsenal. If this rumour is true, it's an amazing coup for Mikel Arteta, who I'm sure has used his Basque connections there. He's obviously dipped into the Real Sociedad pool before and taken players like Mikel Merino, hasn't he? He's really reforming Real Sociedad of like 1920 when it was like Merino, Zubimendi, Ødegaard and Isak. Respect though, because Zubimendi is one of the best holding midfielders in Europe. On the ball, we know his quality, but people don't often talk about how combative he is off the ball. His duel rate in that Sociedad side is amongst the best in La Liga, both aerially and on the ground. So they're getting an excellent player at a good age for a good fee in the summer. If this one happens, it's like a wow, but it's obviously summer. Rashi going to Milan, still kicking up ahead, isn't it? Let's leave this one in good move. Still, I'm very unconvinced about the fit, to be honest with you. I feel like I needed another category today where I'm like, don't understand it. Having seen how Conceição is setting up this side with Rafa Leao on the left, Pulisic on the right, Reinders in the 10 and Morata up front. Where do you guys at home think Rashford fits into that? Because he can't displace Rafa Leao in this side, surely, who's an icon of Milan, who puts up consistently huge goal-scoring numbers. His XG is amazing, one of the biggest dribblers in Europe, huge shot creation numbers. Pulisic has been one of the best players in Italy so far this campaign. Again, lots of goal output. He's not going to play as a 10. Does that mean he's going to play as a 9 where Morata is currently playing under Conceição? It's going to be interesting because wherever he goes, he has to start and he has to make a big impact. United should be doing this deal with no option, with no obligation, because the whole goal of the move should be he has an amazing 6 months that boosts his value ahead of what an option or obligation would be now to a whole new stratosphere. I hope he goes to Milan and smashes it if he goes there. But I am a bit concerned about the fit. Axel Dassassi to Juve. I'm not sure about this one either. Gatti and Kalulu, fine. Bremer out of the ACL, like I said earlier. And they still aren't conceding many goals. Is he an upgrade on Kalulu or Gatti? For me, no. Is he going to be that sort of market opportunity that an Araujo was going to be? No. Is he young enough that you think, okay, one day he could be an absolute sensational player? No. I'm not sure on this one. We've got Dusan Vlahovic to Arsenal in here, but I really want to talk about news that's literally broke as I'm shooting that, and this is Benjamin Sesko in talks to join the club. Let's start with Dusan Vlahovic. Maybe in the summer, but Juve can't be letting players go in that forward area. As I've spoken about already with Kolo Muani, they don't score enough goals. 16 goals less than Inter. I think 14 less than Atalanta. Vlahovic himself is an XG underperformer this season. Despite the fact he's their top scorer, his finishing has been suspect. Arsenal should come back to this in the summer. Let me focus on Benjamin Sesko. I'm aware I haven't got his photo down here. I'll try and add it in. So let's focus on Benjamin Sesko then. And I'll be honest with you, I would put him in wow. This move would blow me away. Arsenal were obviously very interested in the summer when he had that £55 million release clause, but he actually opted to sign a new contract. So the actual body of this deal, I'm really interested to see what it's going to be like. This news is literally just broken, so I don't know. Maybe you guys watching this do in terms of a fee, the structure of the deal. But let's say Arsenal can get a move agreed for Benjamin Sesko. They would be signing one of the most elite young strikers in world football. Given his age, what Sesko is able to do athletically with his ball striking, with his XG, which stands in the top 20% of European strikers this season, it is remarkable. He's an amazing player to watch. Whenever you watch Leipzig, he is the player that catches your eye. Now, often it is because of that ball striking. You've probably seen the goal he scored at the weekend, but it is also his movement and his positioning in the box. At times, it is a little bit Haaland-esque, his athleticism to get off the floor, win things in the air, get a toe in front of a goalkeeper or a centre-back. But he's also young enough that I feel Arteta could coach a specific style of play into him. Now, Arsenal are crying out for a number 9, as has been much talked about. And I think the opportunity with Sesko is such that his room for growth is so big, it's worth just paying the money. They should have got this deal done in the summer. The fact they didn't will probably leave a bit of a sour taste in their mouths because they're going to be paying an awful lot more money for him now. But they got to get a striker through the door. And Sesko is probably the best available option. Given he scored 30 goals across the last 2 seasons, he's already put up 8 this campaign for Leipzig. This would be a huge boost for their title chances. I think as well, it would just give everybody a lift. It would give the Emirates a lift when he first pulls on a shirt, when he first comes onto the pitch. If he scores on his debut or something, I can see there being a massive furore around Sesko. This move is so exciting. Romain Esse as well, going to Palace. It feels like this deal's going to get done at about £14 million. Certainly a good move because he is one of the most talented players in the Championship. So much natural ability, but he actually works really hard off the ball for Millwall. This move feels very Palace, doesn't it? What about Matthias Tell going to Chelsea? Now, this really came off the back of the Nkunku news. Quite interesting that Chelsea have made an inquiry into what is one of the most hyped young players in world football that still doesn't get much game time at Bayern Munich. In fact, gets even less under Vincent Kompany. I think it's 200 minutes of Bundesliga action so far this campaign. I like the fact he can also operate on the left wing and could offer young cover for Nicholas Jackson, who is in a bit of a spot at the moment. not taking his chances quite as naturally. The goals have just dried up a little bit. Obviously, they bought Mark Guerin in the summer as well. This feels like a slightly higher caliber talent, though. In fact, it definitely is, given they would have to pay an awful lot of money to convince him to leave Bayern, who I don't think want to sell him. I think this would be a good move. I don't think this would be Sesko or Visser, but I think it would be a good move. Quickly wrap up with Alphonso Davies. Summer spot, potentially, as I saw rumours yesterday that Real Madrid are very confident now of getting a contract agreed with him, despite the fact a week ago I saw the news that Bayern Munich are very confident of getting a contract extension agreed with him. But whatever happens, if he goes to Real Madrid, I think they get one of the best young left-backs, in fact, the best young left-back in world football. If he stays at Bayern, it's a coup that they've managed to convince him to stay. Okay, so those were the biggest transfer rumours of the week ranked. If you enjoyed this video, make sure you hit the like button, hit subscribe. I'll see you later. Goodbye.